This is Twit.
Why did Facebook buy Oculus VR?
Well, that was kind of explained in the statements that Facebook released yesterday and the Facebook posts that Mark Zuckerberg put out, which is that he sees virtual reality as being the platform of the future. And this is really has huge potential for the way that people interact and socialize with one another. And he even gave a couple of examples of ways that he foresees the technology being used. Courtside seats at a game if you can't make it in real life, going to see a doctor face-to-face remotely, but through virtual reality. So he was dropping in these kind of examples of where his vision seems to be in terms of how he sees the technology being somehow interplaying with what Facebook does. So that seems to be why he made the acquisition. And from my point of view, and from from what I've heard from other people, this is not an acquisition that's going to bear fruit anytime soon. The technology is still very much in its infancy, and we're talking potentially 2 to 3 years out before we see, we're estimating to see any real practical implementation of Oculus and Facebook somehow syncing together.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we reconnected with Ian Scher, who's a reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Welcome to the show, Ian.
Hi, thank you.
Well, Parmi was just telling us about Mark Zuckerberg's justification for why Facebook is buying Oculus VR. And the justification essentially is that, just to deconstruct it, because there's so many nutty things about this argument. Number one, it's virtual reality is a has social potential. That's one kind of crazy idea. The other one is that it's the platform of the future. So let's just, there are multiple things in there that are just kind of screaming out at me, at least. So it's the platform of the future. He's saying that first we had computers, PCs, then we had mobile, and then the thing that follows after that is virtual reality. So that's an astonishing idea in itself. And then the second astonishing idea is that Facebook wants to be the next platform. They want to be the future Microsoft. Is that how you interpreted his comments?
It definitely sounds very similar to what I considered. Yeah. What's interesting is if you think about it, Facebook had struggled a little bit with mobile. If you consider their mobile app for the iPhone wasn't really the greatest until for quite a while, because they had tried making it with HTML5 instead of native code and whatnot. And they refused to make an iPad app for a while as well. And so one could argue that it took them a while to really get mobile. Once they did pretty well with it. But in a lot of ways, some of the kind of analysis that I've been reading has been around, hey, they don't want to miss the next step, right? The next big technology. And certainly, Oculus is something that's very ground floor, bleeding edge. We don't know where this is going to go. There's a lot of questions about whether or not consumers even want to put a gigantic goggles on their heads. I've been joking around, I walk around everywhere and I kind of say hello to everyone like this, just to give them an idea what it's going to look like. It's really kind of unclear where this is all going to go, but there's a lot of momentum behind it. The video game industry especially has put a lot of effort around it. Last week at the Game Developers Conference here in San Francisco, there were numerous game companies putting games out that they're, demos of kind of stuff they're working on. And Sony itself has put a lot of money on this. They've made their own competing handset, and they've been working on it since 2010. So clearly, Oculus and Facebook aren't alone thinking this is where the future is. The question is, how are we going to get there, and do consumers want it?
That's exactly right. Now, you cover video gaming, among other things, for the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
And, the long-term vision is to make virtual reality a social platform and also a general, I guess, computing platform. But in order to get there, the more short-term use of Oculus technology is video gaming, as you said. Do you really see Facebook competing as a video game platform company?
Well, I think if you'd asked me in 2005 whether Facebook would be a video game company at all, I would have said you're nuts. But then they created their platform, and we saw the rise of Zynga and all these other, Candy Crush, today's King's IPO. So there's a lot of things that have come out of Facebook that a lot of us didn't expect. And the reality is that it looks like Mark Zuckerberg's really trying to make his platform as malleable as possible, and really trying to find new ways to insert Facebook into our daily lives. And so while I can't personally imagine a world where Facebook and VR exactly sync up, there are a lot of things that I think a lot of us really would have had a hard time understanding until it happened. So, I'm not going to put my bet against him just quite yet.
Here's something I'm trying to figure out. So Zuckerberg said yesterday he's really not excited about the idea about becoming a hardware company. He says it's more about the services. And I understand that. That's more where Facebook is today. It's about what you can do online. So, but how do we get from here to there? Oculus is, it's hardware, and it's a foundation for virtual reality gaming today and virtual reality other stuff later. But how does actually buying Oculus Rift, Oculus VR, how does that get us to those services? If Facebook is not interested in doing the hardware, why did they buy a hardware company?
That's a really good question. I honestly couldn't even begin to understand. I think that there's a lot of stuff going on with Oculus that is software driven. They need to build a platform. They need to build what are called application programming interfaces, right? APIs. And they need to basically create a platform for all this stuff to work. Much like the original iPhone was created to really kick off the now smartphone revolution. So Facebook clearly just wants to be on the ground floor of that. Will they be selling hardware? It's really unclear. Obviously, for Zuckerberg in the past has said he doesn't want to sell hardware, but there's still a huge software component. Back when Oculus took $75 million in funding back in December from Andreessen Horowitz and others, I spoke with the CEO, and he was telling me, Uribe, he was telling me about how a lot of what Oculus is looking for in the future is creating a platform and creating stuff where you can essentially, in some ways he described an app store, although it's unclear, but basically a clearinghouse for where you can get all of the VR stuff, because otherwise the games that we have today can't just plug into Oculus. You can't take Call of Duty, for example, just throw it on the Oculus. In fact, I was talking to developers and they said you would get very dizzy and nauseous if you tried to play Call of Duty on there. So a lot of the games have to be completely rewritten, have to be completely reworked. That means you need investment capital to push it forward. And also you need a place for people to know where to buy them, because otherwise I'm going to go to Target and I'm going to buy Call of Duty for the Xbox. I'm like, oh, shoot, I meant for the Oculus. So there's stuff like that they need to work out. And a lot of that is not just hardware. It's infrastructure and all sorts of stuff like that.
So we've successfully connected with Reed, and so I'd like to welcome Reed Albergotti to the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, now Reed, there seems to be a kind of a backlash against this move by the people who had been supporting Oculus VR. One of them is Marcus Persson, who is the founder of Minecraft, and he said that Facebook, quote, creeps me out, and he was moving forward with bringing Minecraft to the Oculus platform, and now he says he's not going to do it. Meanwhile, there's also a lot of backlash on the Oculus Kickstarter page. There's a comments area, and of course, this started as a Kickstarter project, so all these people who have been passionate about the platform, spending their own money, being there from the beginning when the company was saying that they were going to remain independent, are pretty honked off, and they're sort of letting them have it in the comments area. What do you think about this? Is Facebook going to have a hard time developing the ecosystem and the user base that's going to be required to do the things that they say they want to do?
It actually reminds me of when I was a kid. I remember you'd listen to a new band and you'd be really into them, and then all of a sudden they'd be played on the radio station. They'd get a big record deal and they'd be everywhere, and you'd go, "Oh, that band totally sold out, man." And I think that's what you're seeing from the video game industry. Facebook is a giant company compared to these startups like Oculus. And I think being absorbed by Facebook raises a lot of concerns. I mean, people haven't really said, I think the creeped out comment is really about privacy. I mean, Facebook's business model is around gathering data on people and selling them very targeted ads. And I think, that may be a new thing for the video game industry. But it's interesting. I mean, that maybe people are worried that sort of thing will seep into the video industry, and you'll have games that are really subsidized by data gathering and advertising.